Geoarchaeological, everyone. This is Dr. Dale Simpson coming into you from the north coast of Rapa Nui. Behind me here, this long platform is called Ahu Papatekena, a very large Ahu Moai structure that contains multiple Moai, wings, multiple constructions, a very important site. And basically we've been camping here for the last week or so. To the ocean side, we've got our little fishing and spear fishing area, places to have swims and little pools called Poco Pocos. It's been really, really relaxing. It's been great to get back into the wilds of Rapa Nui. But as I've been drawing my eye more and more to the coast, more and more to Rapa Nui's geological layers, I saw this structure right here. This little outcrop. And what it seems to be on the bottom of the outcrops are a whole bunch of caves. That very much drew my attention, because for the last 7 years, I've been studying my PhD about Rapa Nui basalt tools. Basalt is a very common stone in the Pacific, because the plate that's pretty much under the Pacific plate, is pretty much all oceanic basalt. So any volcano that's going to be formed through this plate, and any island afterwards, is going to be filled with basalt. Now, some basalt is very fine grain, it has little inclusions, and it's very good to make stone tools or to flint knap. Other stone on Rapa Nui is good to make statues, or good to make fill for ahu. So there's a lot of basalt on Rapa Nui. And the goal of my thesis was to better understand the interaction of the ancient Rapa Nui culture by noting and tracing the basalt movement on the island in the prehistoric period. So I just graduated in November, and in that process I documented some 89 quarries. Quarries are areas that you're going to remove material and create sort of pits. I also found sources. Sources is where you take material freely from the surface of a site. But we also have mines, where Rapa Nui people entered the earth to find the best stone. So as I've been sitting in that area, fishing, relaxing, field walking, I noticed that at a specific part of the geography of this outcrop, there are caves. Now, that's a good sign, because that could mean that Rapa Nui people are mining these areas. One of the weaknesses of my thesis is although I found 89 sources, I had a group of artifacts that I could not readily identify their source. That's to say, I could see them geochemically in space. I knew their elemental profile, but I did not have the source that made these stone tools. And it was one thing I had mentioned. I think if we are going to find more stone tools, they're going to be in areas like cliff areas, coastal areas that the Rapa Nui people can get into and sort of mine. So that's what I want you to think about, is that Rapa Nui is like a cake, a big old birthday cake with multiple layers. And each of these multiple layers represent a unique geological activity, a flow. Sometimes the flow is different because of what was in the magma chamber in the earth. It has different minerals, different elements, and therefore it's going to create different rocks. But as I got a little bit closer to the site, I started to see it. I started to see all of the mining debris, what we would call debitage. Debitage is basically the byproduct of me working from a core that I would pull from an area and then slowly reduce the edges, reduce the margins. And it's really interesting because this sort of complex is sort of based on one line of stone. And that's exactly what I found on the south coast of Rapa Nui, where individuals between Hangapokura and Hangahahave actually mined into a very small lens of basalt that they were after. So looking at these things, I said, is this my missing quarry? By me actually getting out in the field for 5 days and checking out some of these sites, did I find what I was after? And I think I did, because I can see right away this little bit right here with my pole. You can see these are huge cores, huge bits of pieces that they can remove and start the reduction process. They have other little places up top, and then obviously it continues on this line that I'm just going to walk a little bit. I'm going to take my time because it's a little bit hairy and I don't want to get my mom mad. So, you know, better yet, I'm going to come back up to come down. Let's be safe here. Learned my lesson in the past about being too rambunctious, but that's who I am. So you got to control the beast sometimes. So just give me a second here to transverse up. So here's a good idea of this cake layer model. You can see multiple layers. And it looks like here, some material has been removed. This little bit right here in this area. So naturally we should look to the ground and find, are there any evidence of stone tool making? That would include things like hammer stones, preforms, and sure enough, boom. Now, it doesn't look like this material is really, really good. But we still have some flaking of maybe reduction here. But we also could remember too that many of these processes could be natural. And as you look up, there's this cake layer model. All these layers on top of each other. But because Rapa Nui people were geologists, they're looking for specific materials. They're already coming from islands that have great basalt. They know what they're looking for. And these basalt sources are important not just to carve things like statues on Rapa Nui, but to make boats, what the Polynesians are so famous for. So just give me a second here. I gotta go a little bit slower down this little bit. Oh shit. Okay. So again, I'm basically walking through some of these debris fields. All right. Oh wow. Check this out. Little cave structure. Huge boulder right there. Could that have been the boulder that made some of those stone tools I couldn't find? As I look on the ground, I can see chipping debris. But it looks very thin. But we're seeing things like exterior flakes. Let me move a little bit over here. That's the last people that stayed here. Yeah, oh, yes. Check this out, man. So, we do have natural debris. This is weaker stone that just falls and makes this part. So, we've always got to be careful what's natural. But as I come up to this bit, right here, this absolutely looks like a quarry. Or excuse me, more like a mine. Because they've sort of mined their way into this bit. And right underneath some of these huge boulders are exactly what I would expect to find. Bits and pieces. But again, as I said in the other place, this is not really the best grain material. So it's sort of surprising if this is my missing source. Now, it doesn't look like there's that much production in some areas like in Putoki Toki, which is the major Adge quarry. There are huge amounts of debris, chipping debris. Here I'm I'm looking for anything that's a tall tale sign, like a hammerstone, or maybe a nice flake. Again, more chipping stone. All right, let's check out this last little bit here. Take my time. I don't want to get my mom mad. I'm crawling around fucking cliffs. Oh that's nice. Yes. Excellent. Yes. That's a good sign. So here, we've got a nice, so on the outside here, the cortex, they prepared a platform as they're working a core. So this is actually, of all the debris, this is the first sign that someone reduced stone here. Let's move up this area over here. Wow, I wonder if all this material has just been removed. So, if this is my missing site, this is new to science. I mean, obviously the Rapa Nui people know these things are here. We don't want to ever believe that, oh, we find everything. It's not true. We may document it and put it in the record, but the Rapa Nui people knew very well where their resources were at. So again, science is never done. It's an ongoing process. You have to keep out there, you have to keep exploring, you have to keep making hypotheses. So my one hypothesis was, if other stone quarries exist that I don't have, they should end up in places like this, in coastal areas where the Rapa Nui people have access to multiple layers. And this may be my missing quarry. I might have to ask for some permits to take a sample from here that I could run that in Chicago where we did the analysis, and maybe those are my missing quarries. And it really took a pandemic to go back to basics to find the past of Rapa Nui. Geoarchaeological. Little bit of luck, a little bit of a trained eye. So I just get done surveying that area of Papatekena, and I'm walking back up to camp to pack out, and I find this beautiful core in the middle of the field. This looks like the exact same gray material I've just been dealing with. It looks like this is maybe the byproduct of working inside those mines to get a usable piece like this, beautifully fine grain, and then from there this can be reduced. It looks like it has flake scars, and places like basalt has already been taken off. It is incredibly heavy, and I don't doubt that this piece was destined to make basalt stone tools. So if the argument that this stone is coming from there, it shows that Papatekena, this Ahu, this site, has multiple resources. They've got water resources, they've got garden, they've got chicken houses, they've got platforms and houses and coral, and they have basalt. This is a good example of opportunistic use within a clan to find the material they need. And maybe for that reason, that source isn't so developed. It's not being used to make toki for the statue quarry, but instead to make stone tools for the area of Papatekena. Geoarchaeological.